thanks very much for coming. So yeah, I'll just be telling you a bit about my work. So as you can see, it's sort of like a film that plays. It's about 16 minutes long or so. But yeah, and then I've sort of built this kind of frame to go around the work. But the work you can view online as well afterwards if anyone doesn't quite get a chance today. I know there's a lot of people here. So yeah, so this piece is all about a conference. It's called Conduits. So yeah, the idea of the conference has kind of come from the fact that this building is used a lot for people to meet inside. There's conferences, there's different groups of people that kind of come here all the time. Again, you know, us as artists, we're sort of another group of people that are sort of within the space. So the whole premise of the film is kind of like, it's meant to be a little bit lighthearted. It's kind of about the idea of like a conference room that's been triple booked. So you've got 3 different conferences going on in the one room. So you've got the first thing that goes on is a dream genesis kind of conference. So the whole idea is there's this figurehead who speaks, and he's kind of talking all about the idea of giving your dreams a title card at the beginning and using that as kind of a way to control your dreams and to, you know, control your thoughts. The idea of being able to give your dreams kind of like a contents page kind of thing. So yeah, he's kind of talking about that, and then a judge comes on stage who is there to host a moulding competition. So this big frame has that kind of right in center frame. So yeah, it's this idea of people using plastic wraps and kind of making really specific shapes for fruits and vegetables to kind of grow inside. So there's like a courgette slipper, there's like a tin can that's a beetroot, there's a pair of apple hands, there's a pumpkin teapot, there's like a star lemon and a barn-shaped parsnip. So they all sort of have their imperfections, but all of these were sort of hand-drawn by me and sort of made into these kind of 3D kind of shapes and sculptures that sort of, yeah, come into the bigger work. So I'll talk a little bit more about how my sort of making process in a minute, but the final kind of speaker is part of sort of like a pyramid scheme style thing. So it's kind of like about making lasting memories. So yeah, the whole kind of work really focuses around this idea of sort of memories and dream states and loss. And yeah, it's quite, even though it's quite humorous as a concept, it's quite, you know, an emotive piece. It's got a lot of just sort of links to my personal life about just family and things going on in my life. So yeah, it's got a lot of sort of elements that I like to, when I'm making my work, draw a lot of things from my own life and kind of recontextualize them into sort of a narrative structure. So yeah, like even things as simple as like using sort of a pair of curtains from a pub that I go to, or like on the street in one of the first scenes, I've taken photographs of loads of different paving stones that they're sort of on my way to work every day. So every time I go past them now, I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of the ones that's in the work. So kind of like capturing all these bits and kind of putting them into a 3D software. So yeah, the software that I use is called Blender. I know quite a few people know it, quite a few people won't, but it's like a open source software that's free for anyone to download. And it kind of is a way that I use it as a way to make my artworks that I make by hand. So a lot of my past works have been more based on like clay models. And what I would do is make a clay model, like a miniature, and I would scan it in and make a sort of comprehensive environment made out of all these models that I then sort of set a little camera rig through, all digitally. But with this work, I kind of wanted to just try something a bit different, because that's sort of a technique that I've used for a while, and use only sort of flat 2D drawings, like hand drawings. So it's mainly pencil color, but then I have sort of reshaped them all to make like three-dimensional objects using them. So even if it's, you know, something as simple as like this banner here that was just sort of drawn, and then you would just sort of, wave it and make it look like a piece of cloth. That's quite a simple example. But yeah, the sort of more, you can sort of build whatever kind of structures, like even just making the appearance of a table with the hand-drawn table legs, or the banners, or all the fruits. They're quite a clear example. But yeah, that's kind of been a really interesting way to, work this time. It's definitely not as straightforward as the models that are already three-dimensional, because you've really got to think about things in a different way. But I really enjoyed it because a lot of my work I always think is quite reminiscent of like set designs, or kind of quite theatrical. I've never really done anything, I know a lot of people in the arts have, but I've never really done anything that is sort of directly linked to the theatre or set making or set building. But yeah, I don't know, my work always sort of has that look to it. It will be, when I make, say, a sculptural piece, it will be something more like this, that is sort of like, it feels like an additional part of the film rather than actual objects that you can sort of fully comprehend in the space. And that's why I quite like working between like the physical and the digital kind of pieces, because it allows you to never be able to sort of fully immerse yourself in that space. It sort of keeps you at a bit of an arm's length to the piece in a way, and I think it also allows you to sort of fully focus on the video work and what that's trying to say, and spend time with that while still sort of getting enough like visual stimulation in the space. I quite like just playing with that kind of, that sort of border between the two. I think it's just a really interesting place to be. And I know a lot of other artists, especially during the COVID pandemic, kind of, which is what I did myself, turned more towards sort of digital mediums, because it was a way to, still show people work, get people to engage with your work, and be able to experience it. So yeah, since really the pandemic, that's when I started learning Blender, and trying to create these environments that people could experience without, necessarily needing to come and see it in a space or a gallery, which, I think is quite also an important part of making your art accessible to sort of communities as well. A lot of my work is sort of about the ideas of community, but this work, my last piece, Rest Rooms, that was shown at Fact in Liverpool, and that was a work all about sort of public toilets and community spaces. And in this work, I wanted to sort of pare it back and make it still about the idea of sort of group thought and sort of communal thinking. But if you get time to watch the video, you see it sort of, there's a character in it who hasn't come to the meeting, and everyone's sort of wondering where he is. So it's that idea of sort of these pockets of groups kind of existing, but then, the individuals that kind of exist within that as well. So I quite like to sort of, think about the idea of, group and community is a really important thing. And the sort of demonization sometimes that happens with the idea of like group thought, it almost can, people sort of can think of it in relation to sort of cults, or even the things like the pyramid schemes, and obviously, them things can be really bad and really dangerous, but just sort of how important it is just coming together with other people, and that, this idea of community is just, one of the most important things, really. Yeah, that's it, really. Yeah.